Alright, what's going on, folks? So this video has been kind of an odd one because normally I'd kind of show a process as I do it and kind of talk through it and everything. In this one you probably got half the process where I was showing taking apart my axle for my rear end system, and I had a bad U-joint on one, and so headed up to Dunefest and I couldn't go with the bad U-joint, so I figured, alright, let's try and get them fixed. So for anybody that knows, fixing axles on FL350s, it's not an easy process. You can't just press the joints out with a press or anything like that because you'll bend the ears. I'll probably do a longer video on that later. But anyways, you've seen the entire process and everything, or you should have, depending on how I edit this video. But I thought I'd show you guys the finished product here. So these are them. This is after probably about 12, maybe 13 hours worth of work, and they have all new U-joints in them, and they're actually a little beefier U-joints. Not sure if you can see in there. There you go. And all nice and cleaned up. Everything looks like they're brand new. For reference, this is a new old stock axle over here that I have, and everything's clean on this. I'm pretty sure this hasn't been run before, but I'm not 100% positive. Maybe it's been in a machine because it does look like it has a little bit of grease on it, but this is a really good condition. But this is my rebuilt axle over here, looking nice and shiny, and over here looking shiny. Now if you're wondering how to do the process and why I didn't talk through it, I'll probably do a more in-depth video when I'm working on another set of axles here. I was fortunate enough to have a really nice person help me out. A huge shout out to Greg. Thanks for all your help and everything, because I couldn't have done it without you. You literally saved my Dunefest trip, so totally happy about that. So anyways, I'm going to start getting these things back into the machine. That's going to be a quick little process. I'll probably do a speed up of that, and hope you guys enjoyed that, and then I'll talk to you guys at the end. Alright, so one of the first things I'm doing here before I put all this back together is I'm cleaning up this axle. So just getting all the grime and dirt on stuff off of it. Ideally I'd try and get a wire brush onto it. I did with kind of a thistle brush, but I couldn't get a wire wheel or anything on it. But for the most part it looks kind of okay, so I'm not too worried about it. But anyways, I just want to make sure that's really clean, and then I'm going to put some anti-seize on that so that the next guy that's going to take these axles apart isn't finding it like crazy. Alright, just to show you kind of what I'm doing here, just cleaning it off, hitting it with some brake cleaner, trying to get as much of this gunk off as I can. Just like that. Then I'm taking a little wire brush here. I'm just doing what I can. This is really about just removing any grease or grime. I know I'm not really taking off any rust or anything like that. That's alright though. We just don't want any sand or anything. I tend to run in the sand, so just get as much of that off as I can. Okay, definitely not perfect, but I don't have the right tool to get in there and get that any better, so I'm gonna have to live with that, I think. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw in a little bit of grease here, and ideally I would actually take the seals off and try and get this in better. This is not a perfect method to do this, but the bearings themselves actually feel pretty good. I'm just using this opportunity to add just a little bit more grease in there while I can. I'll just keep on packing it in. I do have one bearing on the other side that I think is a little sketch, so I'll probably be replacing these bearings definitely in a future video series. We'll show how to do that and everything, but I think I should have at least another trip out of what we got here, so we're just gonna run with it. everything on this back bearing here. Just kind of clean it out, extent possible. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I cleaned up my bolts and everything, just took them on a wire brush and got all the gunk and everything off them, so they're looking pretty good. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my NIC's compound onto my shaft coming out of the transmission. Alright, so the next thing I gotta do is I gotta feed my axle through. So we're just gonna come gently in. We gotta put this part in first. Gonna pull it away and just kind of feed it through like this. Okay. Now I'm gonna pull the axle up, kind of clear. See, she'll come in. Okay, I think that's what we want. So rotate if we can. There we go. Now we're going to put our bolts in. And these bolts go in. I'm gonna go in that way. I guess they're one-sided. So I'm actually gonna put a little bit of anti-seize on this. Now I'm not going to torque it with the wrench, I'm just going to cinch it up. I want to make sure that one's a little better in. I think this one. Okay, so the service manual says 14 to 18 pounds of torque. I don't have a torque wrench that's going to get in here, but that's probably about as tight as I can do with this Allen wrench. So. Alright, so now I need to turn this thing to the extent possible. I need to find something to turn it with. There we go. Okay. 2 little nuts. Go right on. Next thing we got to do is we got to get our hub assembly to actually seat. Don't think we're quite in yet. So I'm just using the nut here in the axle to get this to seat the rest of the way, because it's not. Let me show you here. So you look back here, you can see I still have axle shaft. It's that little bit there. So I'm just turning this. I'm just kind of doing it by hand actually, just to get that to close up. Okay, so I'm not going to snug it too tight here because this is where all the bearings are. I actually got to take this nut back off, and I have a cotter pin that goes in here. So again, a little bit of anti-seize. Put that around. Now we got to take our nut, which is covered in spider webs. Sorry, take our washer. That. Stick that on. Then take our crown nut. Make sure there's no gunk on there. Thread that on. And I gotta look up the torque specs real quick. I'll take a look for that. Alright, so the torque specs for this nut here is between 50 and 87 pounds, which is quite a bit. Now, I don't have a socket in order to do that, so I'm gonna have to gauge it. So the torque wrench here is just over about a foot. So 50 pounds is probably what we'll end up getting. I'm gonna have to actually lock the brake, so I'm gonna do that real quick. Got the brake on, so we're gonna do, it says 58 to 78 pounds of torque is what the manual says. So again, we're gonna have to gauge that. So that's gonna be pretty tight, and should be able to get the cotter pin through there. I'll have to go find where I lost my cotter pin too. At that point, now we got to take the shocks. We got to get the shocks back on. So these are work shocks. Make sure you can see this pretty good. At least easily enough. There we go. These are work shocks. So there's not an actual. Well, I'm sorry. Down here, there's an actual heim joint. Up at the top, it's a bushing, and it comes with the special axle kit. I've done a whole video series on this, so if you want more information on how to install work shocks, just go ahead and look that up. But what we do is we take there's a little O-ring and then a little, I don't even call it almost a washer, but it's got a shoulder on it. And stick that through here. And then we take the other O-ring and washer, we put that on the back side of the heim joint. And then we lift that up, align all that. Now there's also, I'm doing this, I'm forgetting. There's also this spacer, and that goes inside of the control arm. Let's see if I can turn this camera around here. So there's this spacer here, and that goes inside here. So we're going to back that out. Looks good. Actually, I guess I'm going to have to start it inside control arm. There we go. Just like that. Okay. Now from here, we got another little spacer, just like this. That's gonna go inside there. And tighten all this up. Just like that. All right, let me get the torque values for those. Okay, so now I'm gonna tighten up my my nut here. Torque spec says between 58 and 72 pounds. I set this torque wrench, yeah, 58 to 72. I set the torque wrench to 60 pounds. I don't need to over tighten it. Okay, there we go. 60 pounds. Okay, now we gotta tighten up this up here, and this joint we are torquing to, again, 58 to 72 pounds. A little bit of anti-seize on that. Start tightening this down. Okay, 60 pounds there. Again, the torque spec on that is 58 to 72 pounds. That's all we need to do. So I'm gonna rotate the hub. Get my wrench back. Okay. I think that's looking good. Shock's in. Got this bolt tightened up. I got to get a cotter pin. I'm not really sure where my cotter pin ended up disappearing to. I'm gonna have to find one or make one. But this side is all done. All I gotta do now is put the wheel on, and we're good to go. All right, folks. Well, it's 11:30 p.m. Pretty tired, pretty worn out, but axles are completely in and everything is all buttoned up. Let me show you what we got going on here. So that's all nice and tight there. Looks good. Looks good. Looks good. And something I didn't realize when I was running these axles, the bad ones, is that on a good axle, there is like basically no slot. And I know on my old axles, I had a ton of slot. So if you want to know if your axles are any good, a quick little test is look how much I can just barely move the wheel, right? If you're able to move your wheel more than that, then your axle's probably got some issues. So, but everything's looking real nice, spinning real free. So that's the end of this project. Really excited to be done with it. This was a huge challenge, but glad to be done with it. Got good axles, going to be good for years to come, so really happy with that. With that, I'm gonna call it a night, and tomorrow we get the trailer and we start loading for Dunefest. So we got a lot of fun stuff coming up this week. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, stay safe and have a good time. Take care.